Welcome to the Chess Angle. In this episode, I'm going to discuss the standard Swiss system of pairing players for tournaments and why I feel the random pairings variation is much better, so stick around. Okay, let's talk about the Swiss system of pairing players for tournaments, which is the standard for most events. And most tournament directors use pairing software for it. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm usually kind of off the cuff for these. I'm going to be a little bit more on book because there's a lot of specifics to cover with this, and I want to explain it clearly. So I'm going to discuss a variation of the Swiss system called random pairings. It's what I use at my club, and I feel it's much better than a regular Swiss. So I'm going to refer to this article I wrote a number of years back. So here we go. So if you bring up the issue of, digital clocks, time delay, grandmaster draws, cheating, you're always going to get a lively debate on that. But no one seems to be talking about the traditional Swiss system of pairing players and how inequitable, I believe, and flawed it is at the club level. And that's what I'm presenting here. So I'm going to first discuss the standard Swiss system and its inherent deficiencies, and then I'll define the random pairings variation and why it's a better system. So unless an event is a round robin, virtually all clubs use the Swiss system of pairing players against one another. And it's used for one reason, tradition. This is how it's always been done. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But it's my contention that it does need fixing. Now, there's an old saying in business by Kurt Herbert Adler. He said tradition is what you resort to when you don't have the time or money to do it right. I would put it a little more sternly. I think tradition is what people resort to when they're too unimaginative or uninformed to do something or try something better. It's my firm contention that many tournament directors use the standard Swiss system without fully understanding its inequities. Or if they do, they dismiss them in fear of trying something else. I want to make clear at the outset, I'm advocating the use of random pairings at the club level, where a typical event will have about 25 players or so. In major events with a huge turnout, it's necessary to whittle the field quickly, and so a traditional Swiss is generally more appropriate. But when you're dealing with your typical club, and you have about 20 to 25 players or so, the problems with the Swiss system are glaring, and allow me to demonstrate why that is. With the standard Swiss, rating is the determining factor in how players are paired. The players are listed in rating order from highest to lowest, and the top half plays the bottom half. So for example, if there are 20 players, 1 would play 11, 2 would play 12, etc. And this top half versus bottom half is precisely the problem with the system. It rewards the higher rated player by giving him a gift pairing against an opponent rated much lower, and consequently punishes the lower rated players because they have to play a much higher rated opponent. It's egregiously inequitable, and it creates double dipping, so to speak, for the top rated players. They have the advantage of a high rating and a much lower rated opponent. Isn't their high rating enough? Aren't they supposed to do well, regardless of who their opponent is? In addition, getting that win in the first round is a tremendous psychological boost going into round 2, a point no one seems to mention. Now, this flaw is so outrageous that it has caused many players in the mid to low rating range to deliberately take a first round bye to avoid a game they will likely lose and enter round 2 with a half point and most likely a better pairing. And this tactic is so common that it's been given a name, although often in jest, the Swiss Gambit. I mean, think about that. The Swiss system is so terrible that it causes some players to strategically avoid round 1. Now, a common refrain at this point is that random pairings favor the lower rated players. The key word is random. Nobody is favored. Again, the top half versus bottom half aspect of the Swiss system is what makes it so brutally unfair. It becomes difficult to play opponents of similar rating, with most players going back and forth between much higher and lower rated players. In a 5-round event, you may only get 2 opponents in your rating category. Furthermore, since most clubs feature the same regulars, the pairings remain practically unchanged from one event to the next. I mean, more than once at a club here in New York several years ago, this was, before I started the Long Island Chess Club, I was paired against an IM in round one, since my rating at the time put me just below the halfway point and he was the top rated. But I manned up, I played him, and I even actually drew him one time, right? No Swiss Gambit for me. But as a TD, players would ask me, before I used random pairings, why do I always play the same person in round one or something along those lines? And the traditional Swiss system is the reason. Now let's talk about random pairings, which is what I'm advocating. The use of random pairings is a variation within the Swiss system method of pairing players. Okay, so it's still a Swiss system. You're just tweaking it to make it more equitable. So with random pairings, players are paired randomly within each score group. So the terminology is clear. Score group refers to the players' scores in the tournament, not their ratings. For example, all the players with 1 point are a score group. Also, all those with half point are another score group, etc. The main tenets of the standard Swiss, such as color equalization, not playing the same player twice, all that stuff, still in place. With random pairings, the pairings are strictly based on each player's performance or score in the tournament. So the top half plays the bottom half aspect of a standard Swiss, where most of the inequities occur. That's eliminated. The larger point is that random pairings adjust the standard Swiss system to make it more equitable. So I'll demonstrate random pairings as it would be used in an actual tournament. So in round one, it's almost like picking out of a hat. Everyone is in the same score group because everyone has 0 points. So anyone can play anyone. And the software will randomly assign opponents. For those of you who might be tournament directors out there, Swiss Sys, which is probably the most common pairing software, has the random pairings variation as an option. Okay, there might be others out there, but I'm not sure because all I use is Swiss Sys. I've been using it for years. So anyway, round one, anybody can play anybody. Now, round two and subsequent rounds, different score groups are now established. So you have the ones, all the winners, the halves, all the draws or people who took a bye, and the zeros. All the ones are randomly paired against each other, and all the halves are randomly paired against each other, etc. Now, let's explore some of the advantages of random pairings at the club level in no particular order. Some of these I touched on earlier, but they bear repeating. First, you'll play a variety of opponents instead of the same circle of players resulting from a standard Swiss. Second, you'll have a better chance of playing more players of similar rating. Also, there will presumably be fewer quick grandmaster, quote-unquote grandmaster draws between higher-rated players, since they may meet in earlier rounds and will be less likely to have a draw by agreement. So in round one, higher-rated players will not be automatically rewarded by being paired down several hundred points, and conversely, lower-rated players will not automatically be punished by having to play up several hundred points. So let's conclude this thing a little bit. As for the practical aspect of implementing random pairings into club events, it was well received by the members of my club. I mean, even the complainers didn't complain. Now, why aren't more TDs using random pairings in their events? In no particular order, I offer my opinion. I think the first thing is simply lack of awareness. Random pairings is a relatively new concept that has not yet reached the mainstream chess scene, and many TDs, organizers, and players, they simply don't know that this option even exists. The second thing, I think, for some, is a bit of fear and stubbornness. Many TDs won't try something new, even if they agree with my premise about the traditional Swiss system's flaws. It goes back to the whole, but that's how I've always done it argument. Third is membership worries, possibly. I'm not sure this might be an issue, but it could be, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I mean, some TDs may suspect that the variation of random pairings might turn off some players, but I think it's an overrated concern. It may even increase membership, who knows? And the other thing is pairing software. I mean, at this time, I'm not sure of some of the other options out there. SwissSys has the random pairings option, but others may not. And like I said, this is still kind of a new sort of a fringe movement, even though I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing is, I'm not alone in my strong support of the random pairing variation within the Swiss system. Other TDs and organizers throughout the country are advocating for them. I know Greg Shahade, International Master Greg Shahade. He actually wrote an excellent piece on random pairings for Chess Life Online a number of years ago. And that article is actually what inspired me to research it further and eventually use it at my club. I mean, to my knowledge, and I hope I'm wrong about this, I think I'm the only club around, at least where I am on the East Coast, that uses this variation for all of our events. So there might be others out there, but of course, I can't be aware of every small club in the country. I know at the major events, they don't use it. But as I said, I feel that this is more necessary for the smaller club events. So at this point, using random pairings, as I said, it's still a fringe movement. And my hope is to create awareness, move the conversation forward. I had an article about it in Chess Life that was published about 5 or 6 years ago. And I just think it's one of those things where sometimes tradition doesn't cut it. All right. As always, appreciate you listening. Hope you win your next game. Have a great one.